897 AD. A pope is dragged from his grave, dressed in his robes, and put on trial for his sins. His corpse sits on a throne, his accuser, the new pope. His defense attorney? A terrified deacon forced to speak for the dead. This is the Cadaver Synod, the day the church put a dead pope on trial. The basilica smells of wax, rot, and incense, a scent that can't decide whether to bless or to bury. Inside the Church of St. John Lateran, the faithful have gathered not for a mass, but for a trial. The accused sits at the front, robed in white and gold, a tiara upon his brow. His face is gray, lips blackened, eyes hollow, because the accused has been dead for 7 months. This is Pope Formosus, exhumed from his tomb, dressed again in the vestments of office. He slumps slightly to one side, as if even the dead are ashamed to be part of this. Presiding is Pope Stephen VI, successor, enemy, and judge.
Formosus, you are charged with perjury, with coveting the papacy, and with serving as bishop while still bound to another see.
The court murmurs. Bishops exchange glances. The dead pope does not reply. A deacon is appointed to speak for him. A living man forced to defend a corpse. To understand how a man ends up prosecuted after death, you have to understand Pope Formosus, the living one. He rose in an age when the papacy was less a divine calling than a blood sport. Italy was fractured, the Holy Roman Empire crumbling, and the throne of St. Peter a prize fought over by kings and city lords. Formosus was no villain, a respected bishop and deft diplomat trying to steady a shattered church. He brokered alliances, crowned kings, extended Rome's reach, and made powerful enemies. The papacy had become a tug of war, the Carolingians to the north, and the Spoletan nobles in Italy. Formosus backed the Carolingians. His enemies backed the Spoletans. When he died in 896, he left behind a divided church and a throne of knives. To some, he was a good pope seeking order. To others, a usurper who blessed the wrong bloodline. His death didn't end the feud, it lit the fuse. His successor, Pope Stephen VI, inherited the throne and its paranoia. A Spoletan ally, Stephen could have let the past rot in peace. Instead, he opened the tomb. Why? Madness, pressure, revenge. No one can say for certain. In Stephen's mind, Formosus hadn't merely eared, he had poisoned the church itself. So, to purify Rome, Stephen dragged his predecessor from the grave and prepared to condemn him publicly. Under torchlight, gravediggers pried open the stone, the air filled with the stench of months-old sanctity. The corpse, blackened and stiff, was dressed in papal robes. Fingers once used to bless curled brittle as twigs. Witnesses say it was carried through Rome by torchlight. People watched in disbelief, their faith cracking under the weight of absurdity. When the corpse arrived at St. John Lateran, the stage was set. A living pope screaming at a dead one, even in an age of relics and miracles. This was blasphemy wrapped in farce, but Stephen believed he was doing God's work, erasing Formosus not just from the record, but from memory. It began like any trial, except one participant was decomposing. Stephen stood before the corpse, red-eyed and trembling. Witnesses say he shouted, gestured wildly, as if yelling loud enough could drown out his own doubt. He accused the dead pope of lying, of betraying the church, of stealing a throne he never deserved. And every time he paused, the silence of the corpse filled the room. the deacon said, pale and shaking.
"Then let his silence condemn him."
The courtroom reeked of wax and madness. Stephen annulled Formosus's papacy and declared his ordinations invalid. Priests stripped, sacraments undone. With ritual precision, he cut off 3 fingers from the corpse, the ones used to bless. Then the body was dragged through the streets and thrown into the Tiber River. The trial was over, the spectacle complete. But history was not done. At first, Rome stayed silent. Then the whispers began. They said the river had rejected the body. According to legend, the corpse washed up days later, miraculously intact. The church never confirmed it, but the people didn't need proof. They had a miracle. Some claimed the hand, the one stripped of its fingers, rose in blessing as it floated. Faith turned to fury. Protests shook the city. Bishops denounced Stephen. Churches refused his authority. In the end, Stephen VI was deposed, imprisoned, and strangled in his cell, a man haunted by the dead he tried to erase. Formosus was fished from the river and buried again with honor. His name restored by later popes, but no revision could erase the image of that courtroom. For a brief, terrible moment, faith became theater. Justice became parody. Power wore a corpse like a crown. Some called it divine madness. Others saw only politics in robes, power devouring itself. Beneath the grotesque surface lies something familiar, the way the living dig up the past, not to learn from it, but to weaponize it. In the end, Formosus had the last word in silence. His dead body toppled a pope, reshaped a church, and haunted history for 1,000 years. There is nothing more damning than a truth that refuses to stay buried. Justice had devoured itself. A corpse condemned by the living, and the living damned by the corpse. When power loses its soul, it becomes something hungrier than faith. But hunger doesn't only haunt thrones and altars. It prowls the woods. It follows children home. Long before there were kings or popes, there were stories whispered to keep little girls close to the fire. Stories of red cloaks, sharp teeth, and lies that smiled like men. Because the wolf was never just a wolf, and the path through the forest was never safe. Next time on Lore&Ruin, Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf wasn't always a wolf. A fairy tale that began as a warning and ended as a lie we tell our children.